We never had to discuss sex with our parents. Since childhood, we knew it was a forbidden word at home. In Bisa dialect, the word sex, when translated, literally means do the vagina, which makes you realize how the woman is being regarded as inferior, and the assumption that the woman experiences sex only in a passive form, or precisely, her organ experiences it in a passive form. Now, thinking of it, the phrase to make love doesn't exist in Bisa, because love is mostly not involved. My mom has always looked down on couples kissing on the street because that intimate but affectionate act is something that is uncalled for in my culture. There are lots of girls like me that have never discussed such topics with their parents. Many girls that know that sex should not be done, but without no explanation. If you have sex, you get pregnant and I'll throw you out of the house because you're a tramp. That's what they tell you. However, we know that somehow we end up experiencing sex either directly or indirectly. Some get pregnant, some get STDs, some feel guilty or terrible, etc. What would have happened if they had discussed this with us? We would like to get rid of these taboos. We are the new generation. We must be better, not close-minded like our parents. We need to teach our kids the same. We would love to have this discussion with everyone. We will try to give parental support that is not intimate or inappropriate. But at the same time, we will give you important advices. We'll try to grow together, communicate together, think together, and be together. Tell us what you think. Thank you.
Parlerete anche di sesso? Ci hanno chiesto. La risposta è sì, che parleremo anche di sesso. Ci teniamo però a precisare che questa non sarà una pagina porno.
Many people have asked if sex will be a topic of discussion. Yes, of course. However, we would love to remind you that this is not a pornographic platform, although some pornographic issues might be discussed ahead. Sex is complex but an interesting topic, and due to its complexity, we would like to discuss its diverse aspects with you step by step. These discussions are introduced by Blacks, Africans, Muslims, Christians, atheists, and agnostic women who grew up in Europe. I know your question will be, why talk about sex from a Black woman's perspective? Why not from a woman's perspective in general? Especially when we currently find ourselves in the so-called liberal and progressive society like Europe.
Progressista Europa. Perché alla fine, ragazzi, non basta aver fatto le valigie ed essere venuti in Europa o in Italia.
Because most times when traveling to the so-called liberal or progressive country, we carry our cultures and tradition behind. So it's not that easy to get rid of some things. Sexuality as we see it is more complex. Its aspects are psychological, social, and apart from being biological. Precisely, other than the physical act, it has deep roots in culture, religion, costumes, environment, society where we come from, but most especially, society where the two people who birthed us come from. In fact, sexuality does not begin with puberty as many people think. It actually begins much earlier. From your mother's womb with the early development of the fetus. The pubertal period just reinforces the sexual identity, but it doesn't end there. This physical, psychological, and mental change will accompany the woman through her fertile period and over. Are you ready? Let's begin. As said, sex is a very vast topic and without doubt a very interesting discussion for everyone. We have decided to touch each aspect of it gradually in different moments. Also, we hope to receive from you lots of suggestions, ideas, whatever contributions you have in order to make this platform interesting and informative for you all. I'll begin with the knowledge pill. Did you know that the gender symbol is a Greek mythology? Yes, it is. The female symbol represents the mirror, precisely Venus mirror, while the male symbol represents Ares' shield. In case you don't know who Ares is the god of war. Guys, do you understand how serious this is? The female symbol represents a mere mirror, while the male symbol represents the shield of a god. This is to make you understand the image we are being represented with. You can't talk about sex without mentioning pleasure. Sexual pleasure is a very important thing in couples' life. It's a way of drawing your partner's attention and even for yourself, for you to feel good and feel yourself. Most times, those little things that are needed in order to solidify the idea of sexuality is often ruined by discomfort. These discomforts make you lose the pleasure of experiencing it fully. These things happen because of the society, the religion, the culture, and the tradition where we come from. They also happen because there is none or little information about our sexuality. Guys, we don't know what to do. We're totally clueless. But we that are sexually active, we know that the story of the bee and the flower is just a tale. We know that children are not bought from the supermarket as they tell us. Jokes aside, from childhood we experience a lot of things referred to sex, from TV, songs, books, and many more. Then why are the young men and women clueless about the topic sex? Why is it not freely spoken about since it's an important reality in our daily lives? Sexual education, when taught, often covers the anatomical aspect, like sexually transmitted disease or contraception, and many more. However, there is no explanation on the psychological and physical act itself, or its effects. Almost everyone ends up having sex, but no one talks about it. It seems like our culture and our religious background are contrary to what we feel should be accepted and discussed openly, as this should be regarded as every other thing in our daily life. Even those who keep their virginity till their wedding day need to learn about sex. Sexuality should be taught, just as we learn geography, history, and many more. Some are not even that important in life, but we still learn them. With reference to culture, do you know that sex in some African countries are just for reproductive purposes? Pleasure becomes insignificant, especially in the case of women. Pleasure is seen as something bad, terrible, negative, something that needs to be stopped, even before it begins. For example, infibulation, where the female genital is being cut in order to reduce women's sexual pleasure, because for them, the thought of sex and pleasure does not belong to the woman. Many people think that only prostitutes or women without dignity want sex with pleasure. The good women don't want sex with pleasure, they think. But what is wrong with having pleasure? It seems like the most natural thing on earth. We are all the living proof that our parents had sex. So why does this sound wrong and abnormal? Sexuality remains complex. It has great impact on our social lives. In fact, the development and self-esteem of every individual emerges from their sexual identity. For human beings, sex should not be only for reproduction like in other species. It should be more than that. Sex is a union of culture, traditions, passions, sentiments of both parties. Sexual pleasure has 4 phases. The first phase is called sexual desire. This phase is the beginning of everything, desiring, fantasizing. It's a mental phase, but important in driving you to sexual pleasure. It's important because thoughts and fantasies about someone you like leads you to the second phase, which is called excitement stage. Excitement stage is still about desire and fantasy. However, it's no longer only on a mental level, but is also on a physical level. This is the highest form of pleasure. It's usually connected with the body. The third phase is orgasm. As everyone knows, or some people know, it's the height of pleasure. It's both physical and mental. Few women experienced it, and they gave a detailed account of that particular experience, more than the men of theirs. Seems like it happens rarely that the women hold on carefully to the memory of it, in order to always go back to the memory and remember what they experienced. The fourth stage is erotic pleasure. It's the final and most complex phase. It's basically more a mental and subjective phase. It's nurtured and goes with all described earlier: desire, excitement, orgasm. and many more.
l'educazione lo Stato.
It
Le
assumes
pratiche
different characteristics in
coercitive,
every phase.
ad esempio,
Pleasure in
il
form of
sesso sessuale
desire,
desiderato,
pleasure in
che
form
si
of
riproduce in
satisfaction
maniera
of
concentrativa,
post-orgasm,
il
the
piacere
physical
fisico
pleasure of
funzionale e
excitement,
sconvolgente
the very
dell'orgasmo.
breathtaking
E quindi
pleasure of orgasm.
il piacere
Experience it in
sessuale
a
è
different
qualcosa di
form
molto
due to
importante, sia
cultural,
per l'uomo che per la
religious,
donna.
and traditional
Sentiamo un po',
background.
però, che la donna nera vive la cosa in maniera diversa proprio per la forte impronta culturale e tradizionale che si porta dietro. Spesso coloro alle
In
quali
conclusion,
parlare di
sex is
sesso non
important
fa
both for the
stesso
male and the
contro
female.
loro sono
But we
vittime
have
di
come to the
questo stereotipo.
realization that black
Loro
women
devono chiudere
experience it
ogni
differently
sforzo per
due
cercare
to
di
their
risolvere questa
cultural and
situazione e
traditional
cancellare
background.
questi stereotipi,
Also,
questi
often,
pregiudizi,
many women
perché
are
ancora una
labeled
volta ci
wrongly
piace
just
ricordare che
because they
siamo
love
tutti seduti
sex.
per terra
We
perché
want to put an end to that.
molto
This is
sesso.
also because
Quindi
we are
bisogna
the
iniziare
living
ad
proof
accettare la cosa e
that our
iniziare a
parents had
affrontare la
sex.
sessualità